What's up, everybody? So the next sign I want to go through for the IC in the fourth house is Scorpio. If you have a Scorpio IC, that means your fourth house is ruled by Scorpio, and so your upbringing, your childhood would take on a Scorpio theme. Now, I've gone over Scorpio in a couple other videos, and as you know, it's a very intense sign. So I went over it in just the traits of a Scorpio and what it means in your chart, and also a Scorpio moon. So this is very similar to having a Scorpio moon. That having a Scorpio moon is difficult, and I will preface this video with, this is one of the more difficult placements to have in your fourth house in astrology. And I'll go into why that is the case. But anytime you have water in the fourth house, like Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio, it's difficult because water is a changing element. But change can mean various things. And with Scorpio, it's like an intense change that happens, you know, whether we like it or not. So it brings on a lot of trauma. And so like Scorpio is the sign that rules psychology. And so trauma is associated with Scorpio. Wherever it is in the chart, that is generally where you're like the most traumatic stuff is going to happen, or where Pluto is too. But just to, you know, go back into what Scorpio means. So Scorpio is a highly passionate, intense, deeply feeling sign. So it goes off of its feeling more than anything else. And this is why it can be so unsettling for a child, because sometimes we can't put our feelings into words. And so, you know, we either repress them or we act out. You know, there's not a lot of in between as far as like how we deal with emotions. It is intensely loyal, intensely intimate. So it's like the sign of like deep connection. And it also is very secretive. It can be very controlling. And so that's one of the darker sides of Scorpio, is this controlling energy. It can be manipulative, and more so like controlling and manipulative in a psychological way because of the psychology around it. Not as much physical, but like that can show up. But to start with, we'll talk about the feelings. So like, if you have this placement, or you know, a Scorpio moon, you feel things extremely deeply, and whether you like it or not. And so growing up, you encountered a host of feelings very early on in your life and through your adolescence and, you know, your formative years as well. And these feelings could range from like, you know, really high happy feelings and really low dark feelings. Scorpio is associated more with the dark feelings because of its ruler being Pluto being the god of the underworld. It's, you know, it's a darker sign. So the feelings we associate with that are like loss, abandonment, neglect, betrayal. So like, these things will have happened in some capacity, you know, whether they're like, you know, really intense or not, kind of depends on like your own circumstances and everything. But essentially, like, you feel like you've just been like ripped away from a person with these feelings. I told you Scorpio gets intense, so hence all the intense words. But you will feel that, and so like as a result of that, your feelings are so strong and they are so combative with each other, like within you, that you either like act it out massively, or the most common cases are that you repress them. So you push down all the feelings and all of what you're experiencing because you just can't really handle it. And then, you know, with Scorpio energy, like the key is to then go back in, dig it all up, look at it, understand it, see the truth in it, let it go, let it transform you into something better and stronger. And so you're not getting bitter about it, you're getting better about it. I was like at my graduation in college, that was the speaker's thing. He said, "Don't get bitter, get better." And he sounded like that too. But in this household, you either had siblings, parents, grandparents, someone in the household was extremely controlling. And like there were power struggles in the home, and constantly. And it could be from a parent, it could be from both parents, it could be from an older sibling, it could even be from a younger sibling. It kind of varies on like what form it takes, but someone was very, very controlling, and there were power struggles, there was manipulation, and there was just like, it could be psychological, it could be physical, but there was something that really, really upset you, and that it was hard to deal with as a kid, and like you felt all these things within you, but you push them down or you repress them. Now on the outside, usually someone with this IC is going to have a Leo rising. And I will get into rising signs in another video, but a Leo rising, Leo is the life of the party. They're joyful, they're expressive, they're really bright and happy and exuberant all the time. Not so much when you go into the home of a Leo rising though. So like a couple examples of this are like Robert Downey Jr., Julia Roberts, and Johnny Depp all have this placement. And Robert Downey Jr. has been like known through the media to have a traumatic upbringing with like his dad and drug abuse and like all this other stuff. So it's really important to know, like, you know, if someone is a Leo rising, you look at their IC and like there is something dark in this person's past that they went through. And it's not to say like you can't triumph over it, because you can. And that's the empowering thing. But as a kid, it is so deeply, like, you bury it so deeply that it is really hard to access until you go through like the steps you need to go through. So like everything in your home was constantly changing. And like this could also deal with money, because Scorpio deals with other people's money as well, and like the 8th house and Pluto. So like there's power struggles potentially with money here as well. So maybe you didn't have a lot of it, or it was spent all the time, or it was kept in secret, or it was private, something like that. But it left a mark on you, like on your soul, in a way of like, you have a bad relationship potentially with money, and definitely other people's money and debt and all these things that like are associated with like borrowing or like power in some sort of way, that like with debt, it's someone else's money that you owe them. So like this person is up here, you're here because of the debt. So there's all these power struggles going on. And you know, this can really leave you feeling confused. It can leave you feeling really defeated and weak. So like you could even had a parent or a grandparent who's like mentally or physically debilitated in some sort of way, or, you know, or everything was just like, you could feel, like the word that's coming to mind is thrumming. Like you could feel this thrumming underneath the surface of something that was wrong, like internally, you know, with the people around you. Or it was more overt and it was, you know, expressed more easily. But one character that comes to mind with this is Jenny from Forrest Gump. So like her dad, obviously very abusive. And like this can take on physical abuse, and unfortunately you can, like with this, you can see a lot of adult themes very early in life. So like manipulation, coercion, sexual abuse, betrayal, neglect, you know, power struggles. So like all those things kind of happened to Jenny, and like she didn't know how to deal with it. And so like your instinct is to like push all that down, not look at it, like, and just be in the world and like be, you know, like put on a happy face and be bright and exuberant and everything. Whereas like you're feeling all of this down so deeply, but you can't acknowledge it, so you push it down. And to maintain control, you will do anything to do that. So like if you're in an environment where you don't feel in control, you'll leave. So that's why Jenny like leaves throughout Forrest Gump, is like she keeps leaving because she's not in control. And usually it's because you're not in control of your emotions. So if you feel these emotions coming up of like getting attached to someone, you'll push away, because you don't feel like you deserve it. You don't feel like it was like, you know, like you're gonna get betrayed, you're gonna get neglected, you're gonna get abandoned. Interestingly enough, millennials are all Pluto and Scorpio. And so like these are themes. These are themes we all deal with as millennials of like, you know, pushing someone away when they're getting too close or they're getting like too intimate or whatever. Like you really have to take time to let them in. And it's because, you know, of this control issue of like, I don't want to lose control. I don't want to experience what I experienced in childhood or, you know, at these other various times in my life where like things go into a chaotic mess when I care too much or I let someone in too much. So like there are a lot of emotional walls up with this placement. And like Jenny puts them up through the whole movie. She just keeps putting these emotional walls up and you know, people can't reach her in that way. And so like you have to work on like breaking down those emotional walls, not letting someone else break them down, because then you're not controlling it. So it's like, it's getting that internal control to then break down the walls. Because like ultimately what you want to do is like have a more structured existence, and it's not through like this emotional structure. It's more so like you go into the MC in Taurus now. So we go from the IC to the MC, and Taurus is the opposite sign. It's an earth sign. It's a sign of stability, sign of structure, sign of peace and calm. So when you grow up, you in the world, like you're seeking these types of environments. You want boundaries, you want structure, you want routine, you want something that doesn't change. And Taurus is big into not changing. And so like you will seek comfort in material possessions. You'll seek comfort in, so you could become very materialistic with this. But you are like, you're developing a life that essentially like doesn't change. It's rigid, it's structured, and it won't, you know, it won't change in any sort of way. But to heal this IC, the biggest thing is you have to go back into your past to understand what happened in your childhood, what happened to cause this trauma, and how you reacted to all of it. So I don't recommend this with all the signs, but with Scorpio energy, like therapy is important. Therapy and self-reflection are extremely important, and you can do therapy on yourself. You know, like if that's something you have the power to do, go for it. But if you need to like seek a professional, I would definitely do that too. But the key is that like with this placement, you need to go back into your past. So like another example is the Lion King. So like Simba, very like he probably is an example of this as a character, that he watched his dad die and his uncle betrayed him, and then he didn't know what happened, and everything was pushed down, and he went to live this life of just like fun and, you know, a little bit of hedonism to it. But like he then has to go back to confront what happened, and he has to figure out what happened, and he learns it, he learns the truth, and he's able to like, you know, like dig it back up, but then release it as well, and then everything is put more into balance. So the same kind of thing is important here, where like the thing that you struggled with most is change. Change puts you out of control. So just think of like, you know, and it's drastic, like intense change. So just think of a storm or a volcanic eruption. So like that's the type of change I'm talking about with Scorpio, is that it's these sudden changes that just rip you from, you know, from the existence that you thought you had. A hurricane comes in, a tornado comes in. Like these are sudden changes in nature that really start to like affect you. So like you have to alter your relationship with change. That change is okay. It happens all the time, but you can have slow change too. So like Taurus is a sign that doesn't like to change, but it's something that likes to build over time as well. So like if you look at nature, which is more associated with Taurus, there is change constantly. You can't see it, you know, necessarily until you like step back from it, or you compare like, okay, spring to fall, and then you see all the change that's happened, or even spring to summer, and you see all the change that's happened. But it's the slow change that is okay. And even if things change in life, it doesn't mean that like you're gonna spin out or anything like that. It just means that this is life. Like, it does change. So like being okay, like in your home environment, being okay with your tastes changing, being okay with things changing in your home. Let's say, like, what comes to mind is like Toy Story, where like Andy changes what he wants in his room. I'm not saying he is this placement, but like he has all the cowboy stuff, and then he has all the Buzz Lightyear stuff, and then like everything starts to change though, and that's okay. But the key here is like, you don't want to keep everything like totally rigid in your home. It's that you allow change. You allow yourself to be vulnerable. And that's like the biggest thing, is like, once you allow change, you allow people in, you allow your emotions to be expressed, then you're able to be vulnerable. And like a lot of people with this have Leo rising, so like a lot of actors, a lot of performers have this. So anything artistic is seriously going to heal you with this placement. Like painting, singing, sculpting, acting, writing, anything you can think of will start to help you. Like take just these dark themes and make them into something, to understand them, and to understand like we all go through this kind of stuff. Like we all go through things that really affect us, and that we can transform it. So the biggest thing with like a Scorpio IC is like taking all of that energy and transforming it into something that is really meaningful. Because at the end of the day, Scorpio transforms from the scorpion, which is like the base form, and then it goes into a snake, and then it goes into a phoenix that rises from the ashes, and then it goes into a dove, which is full of compassion and light and connection. So that's where like you can take this sign, but you have to understand like, okay, change is okay. I need to reflect on, my own life and like where I'm at and what happened in the past. And maybe you need someone else to do that with you, like a therapist or a close friend or someone. But the key here is to go back into your past, to understand it and to release it, and to then say like, change is okay. The only constant in life is change. It was on a Volcom shirt I used to own. I love that shirt. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Sagittarius is up next. Take care. Peace out.